Okay, friends, welcome back. Now, I think we saw the data set. Now, we will see the Spark code that we are going to use to actually take that data. Remember the complex data set that we had talked about in the previous videos? We're going to take that data, we're going to read that through Spark, and then we're going to convert that into a more relational friendly schema that we can actually load into Postgres. So, let me take a quick walkthrough of the code. So like I said, right, there are the movie lens metadata is the main data set, and the ratings is the second data set, and there are links and credits and crew and all those things and keywords. So each of these programs are basically taking that complex data structure using Spark, reading it with a schema, and actually extracting the data and then dumping it back into a more friendly format. I picked Parquet because that way, once you have the Parquet files, you can just upload them into the ADLS and then start exploring them using Synapse or even Spark for that matter. So that is the motivation behind it. So let me quickly give a walkthrough of the code. I won't go very deep into the code because it's already there in the Git repository, and people who understand Spark should have no problem understanding the code structure. It's all written in Java, but it can be converted into Python or Scala pretty easily. So let's start with the first data set. So this first program, so the movie metadata data set is where we are focusing on. It takes the inputs, two inputs, ratings, and movies metadata, and what it is trying to do is basically read that CSV into a Spark dataset with a corresponding schema. So if you know Spark, you will see there is like a struct type, and then in the struct type you have struct fields, and each struct field will have couple of things like what's the name of the field, what's the data type of the field, is it nullable or not nullable, and then the metadata part. So this basically is creating a custom schema. It is basically exactly the fields that are there in that CSV which you saw, and then you can see some of them are string types, but they'll actually be JSONs. So what we're doing is we're creating this structure here, and then we're going to reuse that structure in the schema area, and then read the data into the movies data frame or data set in this case, right? Data set. And then we print the schema, etc. And when we actually run this code on the data science VM, you will be able to understand what is getting printed on the screen, because this is exactly what is going to fly through when we run that program. So what we're doing next is basically taking sections of the data of, so in this particular case, right, it belongs to collections, so we're taking collections and then just selecting only the collections, and then filtering out anything that is null, and then we shred that data. So this is what we're saying: drop this complex data column, and then we actually collect the we shred the JSON and then collect the individual columns inside it. So and then we rename those, belongs to collection, um, dot map id, dot map name, dot poster path, vector path. So these are the actual fields inside the complex JSON, and we are actually pulling that out. So and then if you see here, right, this is the important piece. The from JSON is what is going to convert the data that is inside the string column in JSON format into a kind of a map structure inside Spark, and then the map structure will have these columns. So this is actually the belongs to collection map. Inside the map, you'll have ID, name, poster, path, backdrop, path, etc. And then that is what is getting pulled out, and it is converted into more of a table structure. So think of this as taking the JSON and shredding it into more of a relational format. But once you shred it, right, you need the linking ID, and in this case, it's a movie ID, and that's why we collect the movie ID. So if you look at this will be almost like a relational table in the Postgres database, where movie ID will be the primary key, not the primary key, the foreign key, and these will be the columns that are coming from the collections. So the same concept has been applied over and over. If you go here, if you kind of go down, production companies is the next column. People, for every movie, there are multiple production companies that produce the movie, so we pull that out. Then we have production countries, so it'll tell us what country this was produced in. And then we go on and on, and then every time we do all that shredding, we actually write out the data set.